against ISIS may also impact the Iran nuclear showdown. And while President Obama won't be meeting with Iran's President Hassan Rouhani, British Prime Minister David Cameron will sit down with the leader at the UN summit. It will be the first UK face-to-face bilateral talks with an Iranian president since the country's Islamic Revolution some 35 years ago. Christian Whiton, former State Department senior advisor and author of Smart Power, Between Diplomacy and War, is my guest in studio. Wow, what a meeting that will be, because the United States apparently is not going to do it. At least Rouhani has tweeted out that he doesn't expect to meet with President Obama. Why the UK?
Well, the UK is trying to play a role, and really what role can it play? The UK is a lot less today militarily and strategically than it was in 2003 when the Iraq War began, and much less than the 1991 Gulf War. So I think Cameron is trying to play a role. It's not necessarily a good role because, you know, we have this truism that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, maybe the Iranians can be helpful, but that regime is not our friend and really can't help us much. In fact, is causing most of the problems across the Middle East.
In what way?
Well, Iran really is the driver of Islamism. It has proxy armies on Israel's borders. It has its political tentacles into places like Lebanon. And it is sort of part and parcel, even though there's this huge divide, Sunni and Shia. Nonetheless, they can put their differences aside in their hatred of the United States and their support for Islamism, the unification of mosque and state.
So why would they want to get rid of ISIS?
They want to get rid of ISIS because they want Iraq to be their proxy. They're really upset. They had Iraq really sort of under their thumb, Maliki, basically a borderline client of the Iranian regime. Now you have this Sunni army, a terrorist army, the IS, coming up, and that Iran is not happy about that, so they'd like to see them kicked out. They'd love for us to do it for them.
Very interesting. All right, so what about the concern about concessions potentially that the UK or the United States might make with Iran, nuclear concessions to try and get their help to root out ISIS?
It's a very real concern because, for starters, the deal we have with Iran wasn't terribly good. It allowed Iran to maintain its enrichment almost the entire process, to install centrifuges which are even more advanced. So the fact that that weak system of compliance would be watered down even more is a real threat, and it's frankly something that you could expect from John Kerry, from the Obama administration.
Well, so we know that Secretary Kerry met with his Iranian counterpoint on Sunday. So was that the meeting that the United States is going to stand by? Is that why President Obama will not be meeting with the Iranian president?
You know, I think there's still, there's a desire to let John Kerry, I think, run with some of these outlandish things, trying to get the deal of the century between Israel and Hamas, which obviously wasn't going to happen. Trying to talk Iran out of its nuclear weapons is another one of these things. You know, I saw this with North Korea, where this sort of endless talk goes on, and then all of a sudden you have a rogue state, an evil state with a nuclear armament. Yeah. And so I think the White House would like to step in and have a win if possible, and they're going to give a win for that, but they're willing to let John Kerry spin his wheels and see if he turns up anything.
Wow, some very important insights. Christian Whiton, thank you.
Thanks.
The U.S. and the Arab coalition